Good evening, everyone. This is Dolores Cannon with the Metaphysical Hour. And this is May the 27th. I've been dating these so that you will know when you're getting a live show instead of the recorded ones, because when I'm traveling, we pull them out of the archives. But this one tonight is live. And Julia's not here tonight. I've gotten out where I depend on her to help with the interview because she's such a valuable asset. But she is in England, and it's not business this time. Every time we go overseas and we're getting where we practically live out of the country, it's always business. She decided she wanted to take a vacation and get away from the office, get away from work and everything, and not even think about it for a week. So she went to England to visit with some friends over there, and she didn't take her computer, so she haven't been able to access her with emails or anything. And she has her phone, but she said, don't call me unless it's a dire emergency. So she's cut herself off electronically from everything. And I can't blame her because, we are always, it's such a hectic job and with the traveling and all the things we do. But it's unusual nowadays to cut yourself off from all outside communication anyway. I'm a little concerned about the volcano erupting in Iceland because it has been cutting off a lot of the flights back. But she ought to be able to get back here. And then she'll be on with me next Friday when we do the show there. Okay. So, as you all know, we are getting ready for our conference. This is our 6th Transformation Conference, and that's going to be June the 10th through the 12th in Rogers, Arkansas. And all the details are on our website, but it's at the John Q. Hammond Center, which is the largest venue in Arkansas. We had to move to that because the conference has been growing and getting so big. And the people are signing up, and they're sending their money in, and so it's growing. And I think this is going to be just as big as last year, if not bigger. And we have a really good lineup of speakers. So that is going to be June the 10th through the 12th in Rogers, Arkansas, and you can get all the information about it and the speakers on our website, which is Ozark Mountain, but that's abbreviated, OZARKMT.com, or you can just type in DoloresCannon.com. You'll be able to get all the information you need about the conference. And one of our keynotes, as you know, is Dee Wallace, the movie actress, and she's currently on a lot of TV shows, too. We interviewed her a few weeks ago. She was the mother in the E.T. movie, and she has gone into healing, and she's gotten some books on that. She does a healing workshop, and she does talks about creating your reality. So a lot of these stars now are getting to where they don't care anymore if people know they're involved in metaphysics. Used to be they would hold back, and they didn't want people to know, worried about their career. But there's too many of them out there now that believe in these things. So she's our keynote. And also we've got Giorgio Tesaurus. I can't ever pronounce his last name. He is the real Indiana Jones. And he goes all over the world, researching ancient sites and looking into ancient mysteries. And he has the TV show, I think it's on the Sci-Fi Channel, but it might be on another one if I'm not sure. It's called the Ancient Astronaut series. He's going to be there, too. So we've got to have a very good lineup, and we're going to show the movie Three Magic Words, and the producer is going to be here also. So, every year we have our conference, it's always a good variety, and people say they really love it. There's so much going on. Well, from now until the conference, all of my people on my show are going to be the authors that we have published, and they're going to be speakers at the conference. So tonight we're going to be talking to Jack Churchward. Now, I know most people out there who are into metaphysics do know the work of James Churchward. If you've really been into metaphysics for a long time and researching a lot of this, James Churchward was the one who was back in the 20s and later wrote a whole series of books on the lost continent of Lemuria, which he called the Land of Mu. He was the first one to ever write about these things, so he's like a pioneer, or the father, I guess you would say, of the research. Well, Jack Churchward, who was our guest tonight, is James' great-grandson, and he has redone the work of his great-grandfather, and we are just now publishing it. It is out to printers now, and he has added research to his grandfather's work and added more material. So it's bringing back lost information. That's what I'm all about anyway. I always say I'm the reporter and the researcher of lost knowledge, but I don't like to see anything be lost. I like to have it be brought back into our time, especially if it's valuable information like this. So tonight our guest is Jack Churchward. Are you there, Jack?
Yes, I am, ma'am.
Okay. Before we go any further, let me give out the toll-free number in case anybody wants to call in and ask questions tonight. The toll-free number is 888-815-9756. 888-815-9756. And Jack's book is called Lifting the Veil on the Lost Continent of Mu. And it is a reproduction of his great-grandfather's work, but he has added more material to it. Now, Jack, before we get into the book, I want you to tell people about yourself, about your life. You know, what do you do for a living? And tell them, everybody, about yourself.
Okay. I was born and raised on Clearwater Beach, Florida. I served 6 years in the United States Navy. When I got out of the Navy, I started to work for a defense contractor. Since then, I've went back to school and got my Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering, and then I took up some political activities, and then I decided to research my great-grandfather's works. I've been asked questions my entire life about what I thought about it, and my upbringing, the Churchward family that I'm familiar with didn't want to have anything to do with his theories, and they were rather shied away from it. So,
do you think they were embarrassed by his work, or what?
James' wife, Lady Mary Julia, was very upset with James for some reason that I'm not completely sure of at this moment, but that passed down through my father to me and through my grandfather as well. And he was person non grata. To even speak of his works was almost considered a sin.
Well, I do know some about it. You know, that's why I was hoping you were going to get into this story. But that you said back in the days when he wrote the book, you know, nobody knew anything about the continent of Lemuria, did they?
Not that I'm aware of.
So he was kind of talking about something that nobody even believed existed.
And that's
why I think they probably thought he was kind of strange.
Well, he actually, I don't believe he ever referred to his continent as Lemuria. It was always Mu. And he had some translations from the Nikal tablets that he discovered that...
well, he always referred to it as the land of Mu, didn't he?
That's correct.
Uh-huh. But, well, what I was, parts I was surprised when I was reading your manuscript and the books about him was that he actually got most of the information when he traveled to Tibet and a lot of these other countries and found lost tablets and manuscripts, didn't he?
That's what he wrote, yes. That he had traveled. I've been tracking his life, and he spent a long time transversing the Pacific Ocean in 1880s and 1870s and 1880s, and didn't show up into New York until 1895 or so. And when he won a patent infringement case against a large steel company, he gained quite a bit of money from that, and that was in 1914, I believe, and then he restarted his research, and it was 12 years later, in 1926, that he came out with his first book.
But, in those days it wasn't easy to travel like it is today. He really spent a lot of time in those countries, didn't he?
Well, I know that he had quite a following, quite a few people that he maintained contact with all over the world. Well,
I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I read the manuscript. But wasn't it that when he went to Tibet, he had to stay for a while to gain the confidence of the monks before they would even allow him to see these hidden records?
Yes, that's what he wrote.
And then that was mostly what I'm kind of thinking, Zechariah Sitchin. I don't know if you're familiar with his works. Do you know the work of Zechariah Sitchin?
I believe so. He wrote about the Anunnaki.
He was one of only 200 people in the world who could translate Sumerian. Mm-hmm. So he translated the lost Sumerian tablets, manuscripts. So I'm thinking he's along the same way. He found hidden information, your great-grandfather did, that was hidden away. So he really preceded Zechariah by a long years, many, many years ahead of him, by finding lost information that was hidden away in these monasteries.
Yes.
But it wasn't only Tibet; it was other countries too, wasn't it? That he found the manuscripts.
I believe it was in India. And recently, a person in Germany wrote and sent me some evidence that he said that he's found in the call tablets that James wrote about. And I've made a podcast on it, and unfortunately, some of the tablets that he used as evidence of being the Nakal tablets are actually from a Beirut, Lebanon museum. So I'm waiting to find out. Maybe he has some other data. Maybe he got the pictures mixed up, or something happened. But it would be nice if we could see that information and it could reach the light of day.
Do you think this other man has the accurate material, or is he just saying that?
I'm withholding judgment until I see actual something that I can examine.
Because, that's the way it is when people are pioneers, they're the first in something. A lot of people will try to copy their work. But I believe you said even when he first wrote the books, he had a lot of skepticism. There were professors and scientists that didn't believe anything he was writing about. Isn't that true?
Well, from what I'm aware of, what hurt him most was personally the attack on him from the review at the New York Times. I've yet to obtain a copy of it, but that has come when I spoke with the daughter of the man who wrote his biography. She said that hurt him terribly.
Okay, you're kind of breaking up a little, but I think I got most of what you were saying. I don't know if you're hearing me okay, aren't you?
I'm hearing you just fine.
Okay, you're some of the words are kind of being chipped off, but I'm hanging in there just to see. But before we've had a lot of weather, and we had to call the gremlins get on the line, and they start interfering. But well, that's what I was trying to think, because he was talking about this lost continent, and they were saying there's no evidence. The same way they did with Atlantis, for a long time nobody believed Atlantis was there, and there's still skeptics out there today that say that Atlantis and Lemuria were just fiction. So, it's the same idea. They didn't believe it could be possible. In those days, and it was even worse in those days.
Well, I know James collected quite a bit of information. He listened to legends, talked with indigenous peoples, and the idea of Mu is deeply ingrained in the Japanese culture. They have a Mu, and there's a Mu in the floating continent of Mu in China, and the Mu is a theme that runs through quite a bit of the Pacific Ocean, and so I believe that's where James obtained some of his information on the subject. But
why did you get interested in this? Like you said, your family, it was kind of like a taboo, a forbidden subject to even talk about him.
Well,
how did you get interested in it?
Well, after being asked continually, what do I think about his theories? And it only got worse after I got email, because people, Jack at Churchward.com is an easy email address to remember, and lots of people have sent me emails to ask. So I just decided one day that I'd start to research it and look into it myself. Throw away all the preconceived notions that I've already had. Everything that I'd already been told was false and nonsense. I just threw all that away, and I'm just going to take a straightforward look. And the lifting the veil on the lost continent of Mu, motherland of men, is my research, or at least a start on my research toward all his books and his life.
And I believe when we were first talking, I wanted to make sure that, you had the rights to this. You said some people have been printing some of the books out there, but they really didn't have the permission to do that, did they?
Not that I'm aware of. Someone just sent me the other day a list of copyrights that shows that I own the copyright for all the books that were published, that he published.
And there were many published, too, that James Churchward wrote, weren't there?
Yes, I believe there were 7.
7 books? Okay.
The Lost Continent of Mu, Motherland of Men. Then he came out with The Children of Mu. The Lost Continent of Mu was re-released. Then it was The Sacred Symbols of Mu, The Cosmic Forces of Mu, and the second book of The Cosmic Forces of Mu.
Mm-hmm. Just a minute, I'm going to pick up this receiver instead of using. Maybe I'll be able to hear you better. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Because I don't know. See, like I said, you're breaking up, and I don't know if it was my speakerphone or what. But there are 7 books that he wrote, and you have, but the copyrights were given to you by him or been passed down to you or what?
I believe they were renewed by my father in 1959.
Uh-huh. Because, you, like you was talking about, you have the copyrights and you were getting emails that people didn't agree with that, or what?
No, I didn't get any emails. It's just people are publishing them. But I guess it's okay if you change the cover and add something to the book. I believe that if you change the cover and add some content to the book, it's okay to re-release it. At least that's what I've heard.
The original copyright would have expired a long time ago.
If it hadn't been renewed.
Yeah, unless it had been renewed by the original author, usually it passes on to the family.
That's why my father renewed it, I believe. Although I don't understand why.
But that's why I know there are other copies of this out there, and I didn't think that they had the rights to do it if you owned the rights. But some people just assume, well, it's out of copyright, I'll just go ahead and make my own version of those books, especially if it's a classic like these are. So you think that might have been
on the internet as well.
Say what?
There's copies of the books on the internet as well.
There is. I know they say they got a lot of my books on the internet, and they're not supposed to be there, and people are stealing material. But where the internet is now, it's very hard to follow up on a lot of these things either. But anyway, the version that we are publishing of yours is an authorized version, because you do have the rights to reproduce this.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, that's important. And you have added more material. The other ones are just taken from the original, I think, aren't they?
I believe so. Some of them, they might have changed the cover.
Yeah. But, well, anyway, I think your great-grandfather was up against a lot of skepticism. He must have really believed in what he was doing to hang in there, especially, you said, even his own family didn't believe in what he was doing.
That's true.
So he had a lot of, I respect him for doing that, because that's not easy, especially back in the 1920s. And he wrote up until the 30s, didn't he, or was it all in the 20s?
He passed away in 1936, but his last book was the second book of the Cosmic Forces of Mu, was released in 1935.
But even then, nobody knew about these things, and he just like today, we get a lot of skepticism, even in the metaphysical field. We come up with a new theory, and people laugh at us, my books or anything, saying, because it's something they haven't heard of, and it makes it hard. You have to really hang in there if you believe in what you're doing. Did you know your great-grandfather?
Negative. I'm not that old. I never met my grandparents even.
I didn't know if you had ever met him. I wasn't sure how old you were.
My father was born in 1894 in King George's Hotel in Brooklyn, and I was born in 1957.
So you wouldn't have known him, but you just knew the history then.
That's correct, and through research.
Well, how did your father feel about it? Did he believe in what the work was about?
Well, one story he told me was that a fashionable group of people on Clearwater Beach, Florida, decided and found out that he was the grandson of the colonel, and they invited him to a lawn party one time.
Yeah.
And they had called in caterers, and they had beautiful tables, and everything was beautifully manicured, and everybody showed up in their finest dress. And my father showed up fashionably late, wearing a Hawaiian shirt, shorts, and his sandals, and he walked there. And he was nice to everybody, and as soon as somebody asked him what he thought, he gave them what he thought, and it was a bunch of baloney. And
do you think that's what he thought, or what?
I'm sure that's what he thought, and I don't believe was ever invited back.
I don't think he would have been. It sounds like these were people who believed in it, and I guess they thought he was going to be different.
Well, he was his own person. He fought in World War I and World War II. He was in his 50s when he volunteered to go to war in World War II.
Well, you know what they always say, a prophet in their own country. You're never accepted by your own family. They always think you're crazy anyway.
That's
I went through that with my own family. My sister didn't understand anything that I was writing about. She kept saying, you want to be a writer, write real books, romance novels. She said, those are real books. So, it's very hard to get your own family to respect what you're doing anyway. But anyway, let's talk about the material in the books. Okay. Now, we do know, there might be still skeptics out there, we know Atlantis was in the Atlantic Ocean, and that was supposed to, the research that I have done, it was the whole world at that time, and it really it was the whole continent in the Atlantic Ocean. And Lemuria was supposed to be older than Atlantis, wasn't it?
According to James, yes, and Atlantis was one of their colonies.
And it filled the entire, the Pacific Ocean was where it was supposed to have been located.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
It was in the Pacific.
Do you want to tell people, well, I know there are still remnants of what they call the lost continent of Mu. Do you want to tell them which parts they are, if you know that?
Well, James wrote that it was from Easter Island all the way north or all the way to Fiji and Borneo and the Hawaiian Islands.
Yeah.
I don't have the information right in front of me, but it was quite a large landmass. But he always called it three land masses. There was a channel that ran through, where there were two channels, and it trisected the lost continent of Mu, is what he said.
So it wasn't one solid continent. It was like America and all the other continents, like rivers, or bigger than that.
I believe that they were channels for trade and
big
things.
Ones that would go to cut through the land.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Yes.
Well, when I was a year ago, I was on the Hawaiian island of Kauai. That's the oldest of the Hawaiian chain, and they say that it's supposed to be a remnant of the lost continent of Mu.
Yes.
They call it the Mother Island. It's the oldest. And, of course, the other, well, the Big Island is new land that is constantly forming from the volcanoes and eruptions there. But the people in New Zealand think that they may be also remnants of Mu. Did he mention anything about New Zealand?
Well, from what I read so far, I don't believe he did mention a little bit about the Maoris in New Zealand, but he did say Australia was never colonized by the people of Mu. I don't understand that, but he wrote a little bit about the New Zealanders and included some pictures of some of them in his books. Well, but that's in the Children of Mu, which is one of the books that I have yet to get to.
Okay, you're still breaking up, but I'm really listening hard to get you. But
okay.
Well, I'm trying to think. There, we always think of the Ring of Fire, the volcanoes that go all the way around the Pacific, if they are part of that or not.
Well, James did do quite a bit of research on earthquakes. I have copies of some of his scrapbooks, and there are quite a few articles in there on earthquakes and strange phenomena of land sinking and things of that nature.
Uh-huh. Well, is Japan part of it?
They have a. I'm not sure. I don't think that Mu, the continent that James wrote, that put down on his map, doesn't, I believe, reach as far as Japan.
Uh-huh. Because I keep picturing it like in my mind, like it all sank, and the only thing left would be the edges. The same way they say about Atlantis.
Well, there's
certain islands and pieces along the edge, are supposed to be remnants of these continents. But I also heard that even maybe like Baja California, it would come over that far to the United States. But of course, it is all speculation because it would be underneath the sea anyway.
That's correct.
Do you want to talk anything about the continent of Mu? What he found with his research about it, maybe the people, the culture, or anything. Did he find out anything about that?
Well, he said that there was 64 million inhabitants.
Yeah.
That they populated the Earth because that was where mankind originated. Ezra supposedly, according to James, mistranslated the Bible because he wasn't passed down the information that Moses was taught, and that's why the Garden of Eden is placed in the wrong spot. That's according to James.
Uh-huh.
And
okay, I was trying to remember
wrote that it was a beautiful, lush land, and most of that is contained in 1 or 2 pages. His description of the actual continent of Mu.
What about animals? Were the animals different, or did he mention those?
I don't remember at this time whether he...
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, too, because it's been a while since I read the manuscript, what was in there. But I know you have lots of pictures, and they are the original pictures that James had in his books, aren't they?
That's correct. Some of the reprints today haven't taken the time to put in decent pictures, and if you don't have those pictures, then you really can't tell what the idea James was getting across. So I made sure that I had scanned those and got those in there properly.
Uh-huh.
But in addition to the pictures, I also ran through the text, and when I found references to the statements or whatever that was written, I provided references to other authors or wherever it came up. Additionally, I wrote an appendix that cites all the books that James cites in his text, and I compared what he wrote to what the author wrote. And I also, all the people that James mentioned, there's a short biography about them and what they wrote and what their contribution to his works was. And additionally, I used the sources that I could find as well as his scrapbooks that I have copies of.
Well, I noticed that on some of the photographs, like they were reproductions of pictures from museums in Hawaii, and I kept hoping maybe we could get a clearer picture because, it's hard to reproduce one that's been reproduced so many times, and some of them are dark. But I think that those museums in Hawaii probably don't even exist anymore.
The Bishop Museum is still there.
Or if they're there, they probably wouldn't even have these pictures available.
I believe they have quite a bit of materials.
Okay, because I was thinking maybe they wouldn't have them in their archives, but that's a possibility. But we did try to reproduce them as good as we could in the books, that the way they came from the original. And you do he has a lot of work about symbols, too.
That's correct.
And how the symbols are very old and how they have come down through different cultures in that part of the world.
Well,
if I remember right, is that true?
His translation of the tablets allowed him the opportunity to see the symbols and become aware of what they meant. And then he was able to extrapolate that to other symbols that he found and interpret. For instance, petroglyphs in Arizona, he translated some of those.
So these were symbols that have passed down, and probably the people today don't even realize what they mean and their original meanings, going back that far. They probably aren't even aware of that.
That's one of his points. That this was lost knowledge because the string of the Nakal Brotherhood, the keeper of the wisdom from the continent of Mu, the line had been broken, and that mankind had forced themselves apart, as opposed to understanding their shared human existence.
I hope this is recording better, and I hope it's going out over the lines better, because it's still, to me, choppy. But it's not your fault. It's It's the gremlins on the line anyway. But I really respect him because he spent so many years accumulating all of this. And like I said, traveling in those days was very tedious. You couldn't just fly there like you do today. And he had to go and spend many years among those people, didn't he?
Yes, he did. That's what he wrote.
And he said he had to stay there for a long time in the beginning to gain their trust. They weren't just going to show anybody these records.
Yes.
To get their trust so that he would be allowed to read these. So, that took a lot of work, too, to go to these places and to research this and accumulate the information. And he came back with these theories of the lost continents. I believe it's true because it goes along with the work that I've done. Like I said, I'm the reporter of lost knowledge. I like to find anything that people don't know about and research everything I can find on it. So that's why I admire him. He did it under more difficult odds. But there was something in there, too, about, I don't remember what you said about the sun or something, and that's what really got the scientists mad. Wasn't it something there?
Yes,
I remember when we talked before. Yeah?
He was of the opinion that the sun is a cool body, that it has no inherent heat, that the heat we feel is from the center of our Earth and bound up in some energy layers that he discusses in the Cosmic Forces of Mu. And I haven't attempted to read it and understand that portion of his work yet. But being that we've sent probes to the sun and perhaps we've discovered that it does get warm, that perhaps he wasn't right in that regard.
Because, now we're looking at it, well, that's almost 100 years later now, not quite, but we're getting there, when he first wrote them in the 1920s, and we can see things through a different viewpoint, because we have more knowledge now.
Yes.
So you can look at it and think maybe he was right on some of these theories.
Well, that's what I'm hoping to find.
But in those days, the scientists just knew what they knew, and of course, like scientists today, they don't want to have anybody rock their boat. To come in with something that's going to change all of their research and their thinking.
That one reason for my research is to hopefully find the kernel of truth that that perhaps indicates maybe he was just off about where the continent was or something minor like that. But there was an actual continent in it, because there are legends of Mu in the Philippines, in all the islands, and in Japan. So there had to be there's something there.
It's like Atlantis. They claim some of the remnants are around the Bahamas, and they've actually seen things under the ocean. So there are things there if skeptics want to look at these things. But you know how skeptics are. When they look at something, they're going to tear it apart, and if they can find one little thing they think is not correct, then they condemn the entire work.
Well, I'm
That's skeptics, though.
Yes.
But that's what I was trying to remember, some of the things in there. One of the things I thought was very impressive, though, that made me really think, because it does go along with my work, is he talked about, when it went down, everything was destroyed. And can you imagine trying to rebuild a civilization after everything is gone? I mean, there's nothing. I don't know what kind of technology he talked about they had. Did he mention anything about technology?
Well, he did write that they had Vimana, the flying craft.
We have an Ann from Detroit.
In the...
Oh, we got a caller or what? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Usually you make a beep. I'm sorry, Jack. These will make a beep so we know somebody's there. Okay, I hope we can hear him better. Go ahead, Ben.
Okay, I hear you both very well, by the way. I'm not hearing any, there's no problems with the clarity.
Okay, it's very choppy. That was why I'm struggling.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's just you, Dolores.
Or maybe it could be my phone line. Yeah, go ahead. You have a question for Jack? Yeah, go ahead.
My question is, can you or Jack elaborate at all on the relationship between Mu or Lemuria and Atlantis? Because I've read and heard many different theories about the relationship of the wars, the adversarial relationship, how it works.
Well, from James' writings, James wrote that Atlantis was a colony of Mu, that was the origin, the motherland of men, and that the Muians spread out across the globe and populated, for instance, Atlantis. So he didn't write about any wars or anything like that, or any conflict. They were colonial estates or whatever.
Yeah, the work I found is that Lemuria came first, and then some of the survivors went to Atlantis, and it went down many, many thousands of years later. Does that kind of fit in?
I don't believe it was many years. I don't believe that James gives a date for the sinking of Atlantis, but he does say it is from 12 to 14,000 years ago is when the lost continent of Mu went under the waves.
But Lemuria was first.
That's what James wrote, yes.
Yeah, that's what I found. And then it was destroyed, and that was why I thought it was a time sequence like that. First Lemuria, and then Atlantis went down, and some of the survivors of Lemuria went to Atlantis. Oh, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just was wondering if, like I said, either one of you had any insight into just thoughts. Like I said, I can't reference where I've heard it or read it, but that there was some kind of conflict, or maybe, or even a reason for the demise of Atlantis or Lemuria, if one had to do with the other. In other words, for each other's demise. But it just sounds like one is just an offshoot of the other, from what you're saying.
That's what James wrote. Yes.
Okay.
Did he write
thank you
about
very much.
the reasons? Oh, thank you for calling. Did he write about the reasons why it went down? Why it was destroyed?
He wrote that there were Arcadian gas belts under the Earth, under the surface of the Earth, and that these were filled with gas, and volcanoes erupted, and they emptied out, and the land, the lost continent of Mu, just smashed down, and that's what caused it to go under.
So he thinks it was something natural along that line.
Correct.
But I remember the one part I was talking about before the caller came on was that you don't think about it as if everything in a culture is totally destroyed, and then the survivors have to start over from very beginning. I mean, primitive. There's nothing. There's no tools. There's nothing to work with. And they go back to the very beginning as primitive. And look how long it would take them to come back from that. I hadn't thought about that. You think about them carrying on their culture, but he says it goes back to nothing when a continent or something is destroyed. I think that's interesting.
Well, he said that the sinking of the lost continent of Mu, or the continent of Mu, was the beginning of savagery. That before there was no savagery on Earth.
Okay. But then after that, when everything's taken away, people have to survive. So it was back to the beginning, the raw essentials, That would make you think of something like that would happen today if all the technology was gone, and here we were with nothing. And you'd have to go out and make tools, and, like you said, out of stones and branches and things. It wouldn't have anything. It would be very hard for people to start all over again.
Quite.
But how many years have you spent working on this project, doing your own research?
I started back up in the latter part of 2005, and I've been doing it. I do work during the day, and so my time is split between my family, and sometimes I get to do my research. So it all doesn't come in it comes in lurches.
See, I love research. That's why when I write them, I said I research them to death. I mean, I want to find out everything. So to me, spend all day in a library looking for one little thing that's heaven. But I think you'd recognize that, but a lot of the people out there wouldn't understand.
Oh, I absolutely enjoy the research. Digging, like you said, digging the little facts out.
It's the love of the hunt, the research and finding out the answers. That, I think, is the most exciting part of all. To do that, and then you find it, and you know what you have found. Anyway, skeptics can't take that away.
Well, I just want to provide information that I know to be the truth, that I feel confident I can write down, and let everybody be aware that that's what I believe to be the truth.
And you definitely believe in your great-grandfather's work.
I'm not going to state that yet, because
but I mean, he was onto something anyway.
I believe he was, yes. But one of his contributions, as opposed to just the theory of the lost continent of Mu, is a thought that we have, if we realize our shared human existence and learn to get along as people. I was just watching what happened in Joplin, or in Birmingham, or in Japan. These are terrible things that happen. I just don't understand how other people. I mean, when you put it against Ratko Mladic, who was arrested the other day, he was a terrible person and did terrible things to people. I just don't understand why that happens. If we looked at Jane's theories, and if we understand our shared human existence and try to get back to where we have interpersonal relationships and we know everyone, and we start to make life better for everybody.
Well, that's when I tell people I traveled so much all around the world, and I said if more people traveled, I don't think there would be the violence, there wouldn't be the wars, because we'd see everybody is just like everybody else. We all want the same things when you break it down to the basics. Everybody wants for their family, they want a job, they don't want wars. They just want to exist and live in peace with everybody else. And you find that when you're traveling. Well, Jack, we're coming down. We've already been on here almost an hour. We're coming down to the end. Tell people how they can contact you if you want to receive, you said emails or something from people?
Oh,
if
certainly.
They have your questions, tell them how they can contact you.
Well, they can go to my-mu.com, which is the website where I've been updating it with my research. I have a blog there, and I do a
Okay, you want to repeat that website again?
my-mu.com, my-mu.com.
Okay.
And my email address is jack@my-mu.com.
Okay. And Jack is going to be a speaker at our conference on June the 10th to the 12th in Rogers. And the book will be out in time for the conference, and it's called Lifting the Veil on the Lost Continent of Mu. So I want everybody to check in to our website to find out more information about the conference. And Jack, I'm looking forward to seeing you there, finally meeting you in person.
That would be great.
And I thank you for being on tonight.
Thank you.
I was the one that was struggling here, but I think it might be my phone line. Okay, then. Well, thanks, Jack, and I want to thank everybody for listening. And everybody have a good evening. Good night, everyone.
If you enjoyed the show, check out more of our other videos and be sure to subscribe and click the like button. Thank you for listening to the Metaphysical Hour with Dolores Cannon.